I'm getting everything set up, so I'll be with everyone in just a moment. It's a little bit, been having a few issues. Okay. Everything's coming together now. Let me just make sure the audio looks good. Give me just one moment. Oh, this game, I really do love it. And, you know, after not being around for so long, I figured why not, do something fun, right? But how have you been, Cherry? I can adjust it. It's just gonna be some blank space in the background. Let me know when it looks a little better, because it's not gonna be able to... It's not gonna look great. No, that's okay. Does that look any better? Yeah, it was just, settings got messed up. Lots of things happening, none of it particularly great, if you know what I mean. There's always something going on, you know? But yeah, how are things going for you? I know you haven't been around in quite a while, but, you know, not much can really be done about that sometimes, you know? Well, that is why you would use R. That way you could, you know, adjust it. Stuff like that. The movement can sometimes be a little sticky, but it's okay. Ah, now that would be very tough. But you made it through. I always thought all these series were great. I remember the very first one came out. I don't know. I don't even want to think about how long ago it came out. And I saw it and I was like, wow. It's like not a... All these games are so much better than the mainline games, you know? It's just so sad. I didn't know there was going to be a fan game coming out. I would definitely like to try that out. Actually, you know what? Maybe you did mention it at some point, because I know I've mentioned wanting to do this at some point. I don't think that there was ever anything bad that came out of these games. They were always fantastic. I think if the mainline games had anything close to the amount of fun I had with these games, it would be scary. They all, I think, had monster houses. Even the original one had it. The first one, though, when they had them, you really didn't see it until Sky Tower. And it was very rare. But you could get them. It was just highly unlikely. And Sky Tower was just such a hurdle. If you did not understand how to play the game, you just got decimated. Oh, I always ended up, you know me and my Totodile. If I did not end up choosing Totodile, he was always my partner. No matter how much harder it made it, because believe me, Totodile, I know, was a detriment if you played in pretty much any of the Explorers games, but just because he's not a bulky water type. But that's not always a bad thing if you're having fun, right? It's always a better thing to have fun rather than play to win. Personally, that's how I think about it. But, you know, some people don't understand that. It's not a speedrun, it's about having fun. I probably, if I had to guess, I probably chose Cyndaquil because I would always play games with my cousin, and he would have definitely chosen Cyndaquil, or no one chose Chikorita. You know, we can't lie and say somebody said that, you know, they played through the game and always wanted to choose Chikorita, but 9 times out of 10, you know, your friend would always want to counter team you, but that's besides the point, right? It's just a part of the game, you know? The problem is that sometimes you end up playing with the same people, and some people don't enjoy losing, and well, you end up not being able to do competitive things with them and stuff. Watt the Eevee and Ride the Riolu. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely have. I did a playthrough with one of my friends recently, and it was Totodile and Pikachu, and that's a combination that um, well, you can let it speak for itself. Definitely not a strong team. They don't do anything for each. At least Pikachu is an electric type, so it's usable, I guess, but it's still Pikachu. These games are actually Pokemon is one of those games that's very strangely in-depth for its target audience, you know? But that's kind of the fun, isn't it? Is that half the fun is in that no matter who you are, the game isn't too complicated to figure out, and the people who actually know what to do, it's still not unfun. Kinda. It's just there's a very high ceiling to all these games, no matter who you are. But the barrier to entry is also very low because you can always just sit there and level up and eventually beat the game no matter how poor you are at it. And then if you are really good at it, you can kind of push your way through in an instant. Which some people have a problem with low floors, high ceilings. I think it's the best way personally, but that's an entirely different conversation, you know? I don't know. It's a very tough conversation. Low floors, high ceilings. Some people don't agree with low floors. I think that it's personally fine to have low floors if it means that people are having fun and it keeps a community larger. Oh, I don't have a creative bone in me, so it's gonna get the default duo name, but that's, you know, being creative isn't really my specialty. It's actually doing, you know, the execution is what I'm better at. Oh, I'm sure. Bug Fables was definitely a treat for the channel. But I always love these games. I remember playing through them dozens and dozens of times, and it's never a bad time playing through these games. I really wish the main games were just halfway as good as these. It would actually be scary. Instead, they're out suing Pal World for some strange reason. These games were always just so much fun. I always thought for sure that they were going to let you, at some point, use the Wi-Fi connection so one person could control one of the characters and one person could control the other. I mean, if they do, technically they would just lose to Square Enix anyways, because they would just lose the duel to them, having the original patent on it from the early 90s, late 80s. If they really wanted to go that way, they could just go and just fight them for it, because technically it's based off of monster collecting games and they started it first. Like I said, there's no good corporation and there's no good authority. You know me. I don't support anything other than, well, I support those around me. but I don't support corporate greed or anything like that. Yes, I believe you have mentioned that in the past. I really just like challenging things, but I also like a casual thing now and then. It's just sometimes it's tough to translate the two, you know? These games always had good music, good gameplay. It's just, God, Nintendo is just so shitty. They really are. I hate to say it like that, but it's just true. They don't deserve to have anything to be defended whatsoever. I think that people don't even know how many of the songs from all of the different Mystery Dungeon games have made it into other fan-made things just because they're so iconic. I believe that you're going to hear it in just a moment because that's what this mission is. Maybe. I thought that this one where the person stole Spoink's item. Maybe it isn't. Maybe that's one of the first ones you get when you can actually choose your missions from the board. You know, I actually got to the point in the original game where I recruited a Kecleon. The outlaw theme was different. That, the outlaws are the people that have stolen items and you have to defeat them. That's the, I don't know what they call that theme. It was possible to recruit Kecleon, and then you go and recruit him, and he's just not... Is it? I didn't think it was. Maybe it is. Because I thought the outlaws were the mons that you had to defeat as like mini-bosses that would roam around on certain floors. I could be mistaken, it's been so long, because I haven't played Explorers of Sky in ages. That is true. I could go into a dungeon with no items. You know how I tend to play my games. I tend to just, you know, rinse through them. Although, you know, there's pros and cons to it, right? Sometimes it's fun just to do all the side stuff. Really depends on what people want to see, because sometimes, you know, you get sick of the game halfway through and you're like, alright, well let me just get to the end. I don't know how big of a Fallout fan you are. So what is the, I don't know what the other theme is called then. When it comes to, the actual outlaw mons, I don't know what it's called then. But yeah, there are, you know, I've played many games, and I can pretty much... They are, okay. I guess it makes sense. Well, that does add up, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, there are some games where, you know, some people are just die-hard fans of certain companies, and I've just gotten to the point now where if your game isn't good, I just won't play it. You know, you don't pre-order anything, you don't do this, you don't do that, blah blah blah. You've heard me say it 100 times. Um, but some people are just such die-hard fans, they just let these companies get away with whatever they want, and now they're facing the consequences of their actions where they're just putting out shovelware that we used to make fun of as mainstream titles. And at the end of the day, they're laughing because they still are printing money like it's nothing. I will say, when you were younger, I don't know. Back in the day, games, if you didn't pre-order them, you may not have even been able to pick up a copy. But back then, there was no such thing as patches, there were no such things as updates. So you got what you bought, you know? So it was just a completely different culture, you know? It really was. Like, I went to the midnight release for Mario Kart Wii, right? So we left the house at like 11:50, drove to GameStop, and then went and picked it up and played it that night, you know? And it was really cool, and it was, you know, it was an experience you'd never end up forgetting, you know? Yeah, but even then I wouldn't pre-order a hardware game anyways, because first off, a hard copy of a game is usually just a digital code that you redeem, and it's just stupid, so, you know, physical is gone, and they're trying to kill backups on anything. They don't want history to be a thing anymore, which is why they're trying to take down the digital archive. It's just scary. Companies don't want you to own anything, but that's why they need to pass legislation to actually educate people on what the word owning means. I mean, technically they already do with free-to-play games, because they go and have limited time sales and stuff, and it's very deceptive and hurtful to people who live off of FOMO. So, technically, free-to-play games do that. Even, you know, to a degree, full-price $70 games do that by having limited-time sales. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they do it already as it is, which is the biggest problem. I just want to buy a game once, own it, and have it work on release, and that's not something that you can even predict would happen, you know? Which is sad, because games used to come out and be good. Maybe not every game was a winner, you know? There were definitely some games that were not winners. Just like there were some movies that are not winners and, you know, stuff like that. But the market revolves around pretty much just microtransactions, and that's where your money is. That's why it's done. Microtransactions are your income. And as unfortunate as it is to say, that's just the problem, you know? It really is. People will buy the microtransactions and they will like it, whether or not they should. It's tough to justify, don't get me wrong, but they do, because if they can make you spend $70 on a game and then have, you know, 5 out of 10 people spend $140 on microtransactions, they've doubled their money while not having to worry about development costs of making good gameplay and stuff like that. And that is the future, is microtransactions. Free game with microtransactions are the most predatory games out there, and those are the games that make millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's another whole rant that I don't know if you want to hear me talk about, or if you would like to just watch the game and enjoy it without me complaining the whole time. Free games with microtransactions make more money than paid games with microtransactions, and there's no comparison. Pretty much all those games they're scientifically developed to get the most money out of people. For the worse, not for the better. There's a reason why Candy Crush has, I think, an income of $20 billion since release. With a B, not an M, a B. B isn't bad, because it's terrible. I couldn't imagine. I don't mind free to try games. I think those are okay if executed properly. Okay. Well, I'll give you a perfect example of what a microtransaction would be like in this game, right? You know how they have the Wonder Mail so that your friends can save you in this game? Like they have the Wonder Mail, you could send your friend a code over the wireless communication, and then they could revive you if they made it to the floor. Right. Now, imagine if instead of your friend being able to save you for free, they said, why don't you pay $1 and then you can revive right where you were and you're at full health and full moves, and you get a bonus of 1,000 Poké-Dollars that you can put in the bank afterwards. Yeah, I used to use the revive feature all the time because my cousin used to die, and rather than going through the floors a second time on the ones that started you at level 5, I would go and revive him when we would see each other once a week. So we got a lot of use out of it. But just imagine that, and that's like your perfect example of a microtransaction. Or you could go and buy, say, a PP Max, but for real world money. You know? They're micro. They charge you $1 or they charge you 50 cents or blah blah blah. They charge you, say, you want to unlock Mewtwo but you don't want to play through the game. They'll charge you 10 bucks for him. That way you don't have to play through the whole game. But they just nickel and dime you the entire time you play. But these games are even worse. Because like Clash of Clans, I think is the first game that everybody thinks of. You can just spend money to upgrade your base, and you can just keep dropping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to just get the materials, like to pay for the gold and the elixir that you need. And then be a high level, and then, rather than time gating and say, every hour you get 60 gold, you can just buy 60 gold instead for $1. Or you can buy 600 gold for $10, or you can buy 6,000 gold for $1,000, and it keeps scaling up and up. And then they have no limit on how much you can buy in a day. So you could easily spend thousands and thousands of dollars every week trying to get to #1 on the leaderboard. And it's just super predatory to people that have addictions. Just trying to get number one in a game, you know? Free to try games are, I think they're different. It would almost be like you get to play the first chapter of a game, and then if you like it, you can go and put the money in and then buy the full game afterwards, which is how they used to be. It's not like it anymore, but it used to be. But used to be and are, it's just, it's no longer a thing. But I'm okay because we used to call those demos, you know? We used to have demos and, you know, stuff like that. But they would release the game and you could play like the first campaign mission of, say, Payday. You would go and you get halfway through the first mission and then they would cut you off and go, buy the full game now. And it'd be like, okay, you actually got to play the game and try it, you know? So you got to try it and you got to actually experience it. Now, imagine it's just like, it was $1 for, you know, the trial, and then they, every 5 levels, they go, well, I want $5. It's just garbage. Or it's like, imagine you want to have a hat on Pikachu. And they're like, you know what would be great is if we charge you $10 for each hat. And you can't get it in-game by playing. You have to buy and spend money on it. Those are cosmetic microtransactions, and I don't have as much of a problem with it because it doesn't enhance the gameplay. But most free-to-play games, they will say, oh, this hat gives you plus 10 attack. So no matter how good you are, you're always at a disadvantage because this hat gave you plus 10 attack and these gloves gave you plus 20 defense or something. You know? And those are the problem microtransactions. You know? Those are the problem ones where they just pretty much they make it so that you can never win, and those are usually free games. Oh, they do it in single-player games as well. Specifically Ubisoft and EA. They're known as the garbage people. Like, it was just, you could buy single-player currency to not play their games, which is basically, you know, what is the point in having those kinds of microtransactions? Even they don't want you to play their games, you know? There is no stone they will not destroy to gain an ounce of blood out of a rock. If that makes sense. They'll bleed a rock dry of money. But there are some games where, credit to them, they release the game and they come out really good and it's nice, it's refreshing, but it's very few and far between these days. The games like, I would say, what, Black Myth Wukong came out and that's like a full game. Elden Ring came out and that was a full game, you know. Really good single player games always have an impact on the market. Baldur's Gate 3. All those games were massive games that were single player, and the game came out and it was a whole game. And that's why the industry gets mad at companies like that, because they just remind the normal people that don't understand how predatory everything is, just how much can be done to have a game perform well and not just absolutely decimate your wallet and you can just enjoy it. That depends on how much it is for the chapter, right? Because if the game is $10 up front, and they're like, you want to buy another chapter for $5 at a time, I don't have a problem with that because you're actually getting something out of it. And as long as, you know, it's not like I'm buying $10 for the game and then I get another half an hour worth of play for, you know, the same base price. I believe, now don't quote me on it, but I think Final Fantasy VII Remastered did that. Isn't that game just shovelware? I've heard that game is just shovelware. Is it not? I don't know if you know if the term shovelware is or not. Shovelware, it used to just be companies that would just pump out game after game after game, and it was basically the same game that charged you pretty much full price and was not really good. It was just kind of like shoveling out garbage. That's why it was called shovelware. So shovelware used to be a really popular term for, say, movie games, like Shrek 2 the movie, and the game was just really awful, but because it had the name of a movie that came out, it was just shoveled out to be released with the name of with the movie time, right? Or, you know, and like a CSI game, you know, because it was part of the TV show. They just shoveled it out, so they just called it shovelware, you know? Yeah, well, Steam has its good and bad. I do think that they're not the worst out there. When it comes to stuff like that, it's a good thing they do because a lot of the games are basically just scams that people release on Steam, and they can just get away with it. Like the day before, or whatever it was, that zombie survival game that they just had to get delisted because it was just shovelware. It wasn't even a game, it was just a scam. But back then, shovelware was much, much worse just because you kinda... Yeah, but the only reason why it's probably slightly better is because it was just garbage for so long. I saw gameplay of it and it reminded me of old school shovelware garbage. And that's not a compliment, you know? Just because it was noticeably better does not mean it was still... Yeah, like, you're raising a bar, but it's like you're comparing eating dirt off the ground to like eating a leaf off a tree. It's marginally better for you, but that doesn't excuse the fact that you shouldn't be shoveling dirt down your throat. I don't know. All these kinds of games that do stuff like that, it's sad, really, because people will buy it anyways. So, people don't learn from their mistakes, unfortunately. But what can you do? People want to buy garbage, you know, whether it's for a meme or whatever, but it doesn't benefit anybody when people buy garbage and then put out reviews on garbage. All it does is reaffirm to these companies, right, all it does is just reaffirm to them that they can shovel out whatever they want and people are gonna buy it for the ha-has. there comes a point where you have to, you know, how do I say this without sounding snobbish? You should have standards after a certain point, you know? Should have some standards for yourself. I did, and the guy, you don't like seeing people get injured, but he's someone who deserved it, just based off the content that he constantly makes. So I don't feel bad for him for going and driving a supercar during a massive rainstorm, you know? I just don't feel bad for him. Also, the guy is in a lawsuit for assaulting people and everything else, so I don't feel bad for him. I mean, he's had multiple lawsuits for assaulting people on the street and everything else, so the guy is an actual monster. So no, I don't feel bad for monsters at all. And then making sure that your friend who took the brunt of the impact because he crashed his car on the passenger side and his friend's bleeding all over the place. And telling him, make sure you get this, make sure you get this, record it, you're a monster. Dude's an absolute monster. He used to show up at people's houses too and knock on their doors. I think he showed up to FaZe Clan's house and just, like, stood there fighting with him and screaming at the door to let them in because he wanted to record with them. And his parents are to blame too because they allowed it to happen. So I blame the parents as much as I blame the kid. There are times when I don't even know if it's bait. Because I don't think it's actually bait coming from that dude. God, Ancient Power is so broken. Every boosting move in this game is just the most broken thing. Oh, I forgot how... I don't think I've ever played as a Phanpy. But man... Having at level 5 Ancient Power is stupid. With him it's not even bait though, he's actually just a monster. He has no social awareness. And literally just does it for the content. You have to be a monster to be like that, you really do. He's not dangerously unaware. His parents never told him no. And nobody's ever told him no. So as a result, he's just been taught that it's okay to do whatever you want as long as it makes you money. So go up to someone and assault them in front of their family and, you know, who cares, right? Hire criminals to work for you who, you know, don't mind assaulting people and hurting them for a paycheck and for clout. It's just, you are a monster and the people that watch him are also sick in the head. So, I'm not saying that I'm perfect over here by any means, don't get me wrong. However, he is a monster, along with everybody who watches him and encourages that kind of bad behavior. And, you know, the more people that watch him, the more money he makes, so there's no consequence to crashing a supercar. And let me tell you, the hurricanes and stuff down here, when he was out driving in the tropical storm before it happened, he's also just an idiot, just for driving out in that. Because the hurricane still smacked this state around like there was no tomorrow. They're almost synonyms. Driving a supercar in the rain is a bad idea. I've driven in hurricanes, blizzards, you name it. But, you know, I think it's pretty fair to call a rock and to call someone who's a monster. If you hand your friend who just got in a car accident, is bleeding from their head and could die from it, telling him to continue to record the screen and record the content, you're just a monster. There's no other way of putting it, you know? There's just no other way of saying it. If you don't call out evil, evil wins, right? Does that make sense? Sometimes it is hard to do the right thing, but it's better to try and do the right thing and fail than to do nothing and have people suffer because of it. That is always the biggest moral question, is how much can you do before it's too much? Yes, that is 100% true, but I don't believe him to be an idiot. I believe him to be a monster because he's been doing it for probably close to a decade now. Most people have learned right from wrong by their teenage years, and as a kid he started out doing this and never improved or wanted to improve because there is no money in being a good person when you can be the worst person available and be rewarded even better for it. Unfortunately. Hate to say it, but it's much easier to be a monster than it is to be a good person. It's just like with corporations, profits before people, you know? You can manage to make a profit and not be a good person. Why would you be a good person? You can't teach good. You can't teach good to people who don't want to learn, you know? It indeed does. Why do you think nothing good is ever published on the news and it's only awful, awful things? People would rather see bad news than good news. But yet they won't cover real stories. And why do you disagree? I'm all for seeing your side of your point of view on it. But I would like to know why you disagree. Right, but do you think that it's a good idea to cover only negatives? Like, there's 24 hours in a day. You're telling me that you cannot cover something good that's happening in your world while at the same time covering what's important? No, that's what I mean. I'm not trying to disagree with you, but what I am saying is, when's the last time you've gone and, well, first off, when's the last time you've watched the news? And second off, when's the last time you've, you know, not seen a cycle that has only the same story that's been spewed out by 10 different channels, all pointing fingers at one another that someone else is at fault for it, you know? That's the problem. I don't have a problem with education. What I do have a problem with is just malicious ignorance. Because there are plenty of news and people out there who just... Well, if you watch the debate, I can't sit through stuff like that. It's just... It's too much. There's nothing good about it. You know, there really isn't. It's always just your side versus my side. But you can't do anything about it because people love flocking to whatever, you know. Yeah, I guess. It's too much. It's like a cage match, but it's everybody against everybody. Nothing positive comes out of a 50-50 where one side loses and gains nothing out of it. That's a problem. The news is also manufactured to, like you said, produce outrage. And, well, you know, they've mastered it. They've absolutely mastered the ability to... It has... This game is the one with the weird ones where they've got the misspelled items and they're just... They murder you? Yeah. Or just something silly. We got one of the, Oren berries. Yeah. I don't know if this game also had it, but the original one, they had it so that you could, use glitches to make it so that you're... You know how the bosses have a lot of health? I don't know if you've ever, how often you've played these games, but if you gave them, I don't know if they fixed it in this game, but if you gave, say, a boss a ton of HP and then you gave them a reviver seed, they would then revive. Well, the thing about it was, when you recruited them, they didn't have the same health, they had normal health, which, you know, makes sense. But if you were able to give them a reviver seed and revive them at the time, they would keep that health after you defeated them. So you could end up having teammates with like hundreds and hundreds of HP. But it's kind of hard to do that with Pokemon, to have them not... I mean, it would have to be almost like... They could... This is the one game where I think they could do it, right? Where they could just have... It's almost like a maze to get to the boss, and he's constantly summoning more minions. Or you have to go and use like Strength and Rock Smash to go and fight your way through the floor to actually reach the boss, because he's constantly like setting lava traps and poison traps at you. I'll be back in 1 second. I gotta go let the dog out. I think the problem with the quiz-themed boss is, unless you are actively going out of your way to not cheat it, it would be more annoying. And then you would only have to learn it once, or you could just save before it and then, you know, not have to deal with it. But I do think this is one of those games where they probably could get away with it. And just make it so that there's lots of little minions that continue to summon. And then they drop like lava pads or water on you so that you can't keep going. And you have to actually go and hit a switch or something. Almost like a dungeon in, say, Legend of Zelda or something. Some games do chess-themed, like, bosses, and they're usually kind of cool. I guess you could make it be like the water, fire, grass. And then have something like a trump card be like psychic, because it can pretty much just kill everything. The one thing that I thought they did that was really cool in the new Mystery Dungeon game, the one for the Switch, was you could have like 10 minions. So you could really have like a big brawl with you. And just like the bosses were actually, because they re-released Blue Rescue Team and Red Rescue Team, but they actually had different mechanics with some of the bosses, so there were some DOTs. You know how usually you can only have like 2 or 3 people on a team in Explorers of Sky, because like they had the party size, so you could have 4 smalls or 2, or they limited you to 3 or 2 big minions, right? I'd say minions, but you could have up to like 10 people in game, and you would just be able to recruit more people in game and keep going. And sometimes they would just send through like wave after wave of minions and stuff, and it was just kind of cool. I remember the Kyogre fight was really cool in particular, because sometimes the water would come up and it would just splash you around and throw you around, and all of a sudden everybody was gone. And so they'd be spread across the dungeon floor. And yeah, it still had the same problem you said with massive HP. Oh, that's okay. It was the remake of Explorers Blue Rescue Team. So Blue Rescue Team, when they remade it, you could actually just continue to recruit people up to like 10 or something. And it was just kind of cool having a massive team with you. Well, you would start out with 4, and then in the dungeon you would end up having, I don't know that it was 10, but you would have a lot of people with you. So you would go through, and by the end of like a big dungeon, you could have like 8 people with you, and then you could recruit them. I wonder if there's a... Maybe I could show you one of these. I wonder if I could get my save file. See, if I had the capabilities to stream on the Switch, I would. But I remember the Kyogre boss fight was really cool because the water would just like sweep you around and smack you around mid-boss, so eventually only like your first people that were your level survived. And it was just an all-out brawl. I thought it was really cool. It wasn't just a one-to-one remake. It was it was a one-to-one, but then it had all the new types. And it may have even had megas too, which I think was also really cool. I'd have to see if I can show it. If not, I'm sure I could figure out a way to do it, but I don't have the stuff for it. But the remake was actually... I really like the remake. Yeah, I'll see you when you get back. Um, I think that the two of them are both unique enough that they should both be played, personally. And I do think they should be played in order, because they do get better as it goes along. I played Explorers of Sky, and then I played Blue Rescue Team, and then Explorers of Sky, so it was a bit different. Well, Blue Rescue Team's the original one, right? Well, rather, Red Rescue Team is the original that came out on the Game Boy Advance. Well, they're unique plots, right? So Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team had the same plot. And then, I believe... Well... I believe... You know how they have Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald, and like, they have... Like, Emerald is like the refined version. Kind of like Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. So, those were the only ones I played. I don't know if there was another one after Explorers of Sky, Darkness, and stuff that came out and were any better. There may have been one more that came out afterwards, but I did not personally play it. I think I saw someone one time mention like Super Rescue Team or something. But I'm sure I've mentioned in the past that it was not cool to play kids games at a certain point and you tend to listen to your friends. And I've more than outgrown that kind of mindset. So I would go back and play them if that was the case. I don't know though. I can't really comment on it as I really have only played Explorers of Time and then Blue and Red Rescue Team. That's what I know. But I think that because they expanded so much on the first one and then this one, they're unique enough that you'd want to play them both. As for if there is another one after the fact, I can't comment on it because I just don't know, personally. I couldn't tell you. Adventure Team, huh? Let me see. That one released on the Wii. You know? I wonder if those were either A, Japanese only, or B, they were just the digital downloads, which I never experienced. I don't really know. Because it looks like they were Wii games, and I know that if they're WiiWare games, 9 out of 10 times that means they were digital releases only, and I didn't have any idea about that really growing up. That was kind of a new thing. But I believe another one came out after that one, and it may have been a 3DS title. I don't know. That one, the description says it's a WiiWare game, which means it must have been digital only, which is why I can't comment on it. Alright, Cherry, it was good to see you. You have a good one. I do. It was not intentional, but the game decided that I was a Phanpy this time, so it is who I am. Geodude's not very blue, but that's okay. Maybe he could eat some blue items or something in Oranberry and turn blue.